And groundholding actually would mean you're always in a position to perfectly understand and communicate with your car.
Now we will drive over the bumps to test the suspension and the stiffness of the body of the car.
If you're completely insulated from what happens around you, you get no feeling.
When a street 911 goes onto a racetrack, you can just beat that car all day long, abuse it, drive it around a racetrack at full speed, and then drive it home at night. And actually the car probably is thanking you for doing it, because that's what Porsches are all about, is performance.
At a place like the Daytona 24-hour, you see perfectly ordinary 911s, fleets of them out there just going like the hammers of hell, and going hour after hour after hour. And in the morning, when all kinds of exotic stuff has dropped out, there'll be 9 guys from Germany and another group of guys from the United States who are still sailing around the racetrack in their 911s.
Our big chief, Ferry Porsche, always said we must go to the races with sports cars, that the customer can see that's the same car I can buy.
There's so many similarities between the Super Cup car, which is a racing car, and a normal stock 911. First, you'll notice that the dashboard is very similar to the dashboard in a street 911. It's got all the gauges are the same. The suspension and the engine are the same in this car as in a production car. The transmission is a 6-speed transmission, and it's identical to the ones that we use on a street car.
A turbo need about 4.6 seconds from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. But on the brakes, 2.6 seconds from 100 to 0.
After winning Pikes Peak in 1994 in the open class, I really wanted to go in 1995 and race the new twin turbo. We basically put the roll cage in the car, put a fuel cell in the car, and showed up and raced the car totally stock, and went on to win Pikes Peak in 1995. I went with the same crew that I had before, and they were all asking me, what do we do now? Basically, we cleaned the car.
A lot of the technology that is developed for racing trickles down to the road car, and this is where the VarioRam thing came from.
What VarioRam does is it gives you increased torque and horsepower in the RPM range that we most often drive in. And you can stay in a higher gear. You can stay in 4th or 5th gear and lug it down to like 20 miles an hour and put your foot on the gas and pull smoothly away.
There's another thing that we got from racing. In the early days of the 911, we had, for instance, chromed windshield wipers. And our race drivers at Le Mans were complaining at night when it was raining that on these chromed windshield wipers, they got reflections from light. And I mean, if you go down the straight at Le Mans with something like 250 plus miles an hour, this is not really what helps you stay on the road. So the racing team at Le Mans one night decided to spray the windshield wipers with black. So when we started to paint our windshield wipers and a lot of the chrome black, it was actually not a fashion that we followed. It was maybe a fashion that we created, but there was a purpose behind it.
Back in the early days at Le Mans, they would line the cars up on one side of the track and the drivers would be on the other side of the track, and the gun would go off and the drivers would run across the track, jump into their cars and take off. Well, Porsche decided that it would save a few tenths of a second if the ignition was on the left-hand side, so the guy could jump in his car, take his left hand, start it up, and with his right hand put the car into gear.
His bridge is a little bit more than 83 meters. If you go with a new turbo with 300 kilometers per hour on the Autobahn, you need 1 second from this wall to the wall on the other side, in 1 second.
I had a friend at one of the races that was driving one of these special built cars in one lap of America, and he said, yeah, I thought I had a really good chance I could win this thing. I had this lightweight car, and then I looked and read somewhere and found out you're going to be in this 911 twin turbo all-wheel drive car, and he goes, well, second doesn't sound too bad anymore.
I've had other automobile manufacturers offer me cars and money to race, and the biggest problem with that is I'd have to race against Porsches.
Here we produce the 107 cars a day. 13 of these are Targas.
The original Targa design was introduced in the middle of the 60s, and it was a very new way of open air driving.
When the Targa ceased to be produced in 1994, the Porsche engineers had all these very loyal Targa fans to appease, and they decided, okay, we're going to build a whole new design based on the new 911.
The roof rails that we have along the sides had to be as lean as possible, and we had to make this glass area as large as possible. You have the problem that you're dealing with a car that's able to travel at least 170 miles an hour top speed, and at 170 there's one hell of a pull, aerodynamic pull, on the side glass. Now we're asking them to engineer a roof glass which was about 4 times the surface area, that's still going to stay in place at 170 miles an hour.
The idea of having the whole roof glass is terrific, and to have that work successfully is a nifty bit of craftsmanship.
It has this fantastic glass roof which you can open at high speeds, and you can drive around on a miserable day and look at the sky and say, well, it's gray, but at least I see something.
It's like a jet fighter, you know, it's like a bubble-top car.
In the full open position, it's as quiet, if not quieter, than a sunroof coupe.
And you can have a lot of fun watching the top slide back and forth and pushing all the little buttons and levers.
Porsche has to think of fun all the time, because fun is an intrinsic part of what a Porsche is. It's perfectly useful day in, day out transportation, but it has to be more than that. Every Porsche has to have a percentage of amusement, a percentage of entertainment baked into the mix.
You always find a little bit different way to drive the car. You get a little bit more out of it the next time you drive that mountain road. Many other cars that I end up driving during the year on photo shoots and things, they end up, you know, you've done everything you could in the car instantly, and you don't feel like there's much else you could do in it. Whereas this 911, you keep driving it, you keep learning a little bit more about it, and it becomes a totally entertaining car as a driver.
It's always a car to me that impresses the people inside it more than the people outside it, you know, and that's what I like. I like to get in it and get out on the road. That's what I enjoy. Not parking it in front of a cafe and just leaning on it, you know. That's not it.
Every time a new Porsche model comes out, we say, well, this is it. In fact, we have got ourselves in trouble because we've said, this is the best 911 ever built. Then the next model comes out and we say, no, this is the best 911 ever built. So we stopped saying it's the best 911 built until they stopped building 911s.